Sound up.
Kia ora.
Just introduce yourself.
Ai. Ko Lynn Walmsley, tōku ingoa, no Rotorua hau. Ko Ngāti Whakaue, Hurunga Te Rangi, ko Tūharangi Ngāti Wāhio, ko Tūwhare tō Tūteta Whāhoki. Ai, and I'm part of Te Ata Whai Aroha Compassionate Communities.
Can you tell us who is Te Ata Whai Aroha and what is it that you do in our community?
Ai. Te Ata Whai Aroha Compassionate Communities was established around 5 to 6 years ago, and we actually did create a charitable trust. Our charitable trust is a two-whare model, which is co-governance, and we have tangata whenua trustees and tangata te tiriti trustees. So we have 5 in each whare. And our trustees in the tangata whenua whare, we will deal with anything that's specifically Māori, although we work well with our partners, and what's been happening is that we just work together, and if there's anything that they're not sure about te tangata tiriti whare, they'll defer it to us for a decision or conversation, or just to give them some insight into what their kaupapa is. Yes, so Te Ata Whai Aroha, our main aim is to encourage whānau-led funeral options, and looking at dying, death and burial to reclaim the privilege of caring for our whānau in their dying and death, and providing options really so that whānau make the choices for themselves first and for their whānau, but that they know the options, that they're informed. And whatever anybody chooses to do, that is their privilege and right. But we would like to share information and our resources. So, for example, natural burial. Natural burial is when someone dies that they choose not to be embalmed, that they are in a biodegradable envelope or coffin, or so biodegradable, it could be a kōpaki, which is made of harakeke, or a harakeke paper shroud, cotton shroud, a coffin that is has been made from just untreated pine. So it's just really providing information and the resources. If whānau are not embalmed, then we can provide cooling resources. So the key is to get the body as cold as possible, as soon as possible, and then there's no need for embalming. Just statistically, 9 out of 10 people are embalmed, but we really believe that it should be the other way around. 9 out of 10 people should not be embalmed, and that would cut down on the environmental impact of cemeteries, that we're not putting anything that's not natural, i.e. formaldehyde, into our whenua. And I think that's what really motivated me to in this kaupapa of natural burial, is that it's environmentally that we need to return back to practices that enhance and beautify papatūānuku. So for my own whānau, we have established a natural burial area, and we are the first on whenua Māori that I know of. But then saying that, natural burial is just a return to what we already did. So it's we've established a natural burial area within a reservation through the Māori Land Court. So we did that in a legal way. I do want to share that it's a transfer of mauri. That's how I see it. The transfer of mauri from us as a person, tangata, into our whenua, so that we really do become tangata whenua. I share an example of finding elephant graves in in the deserts in Africa, and they used hyperspectral imaging where they flew on so using hyperspectral imaging, they were in the up in the sky in a plane, and they could see from the hyperspectral imaging areas of vegetation that glowed brighter than others. And so when they investigated, that's where elephants' graves were. So it just like, ping, to me, it's just a transfer of Māori from one energy source to another energy source. So that's my motivation, to transfer my Māori into our whenua to grow a tree. If I do one good thing in my life, it's to grow a tree. Could be, yes. So our natural burial, what does that mean? So no embalming. It also means a biodegradable coffin or a kopaki, and it also means a shallow burial. So shallow burial is 750 millimetres. So that's all how deep we have to bury. And that means that there's life in the soil so that we decompose and break down faster, rather than being buried 6 feet under where there's no life, it's cold, it's pretty much a refrigerator. So growing a tree is another component of natural burial. So we don't grow monuments. We don't put anything onto the plot that's man-made. No plastics, and we will plant a tree on top, at the top of the plot or beside the plot. Usually never straight on top, because as our bodies are transforming, we may actually produce too many nutrients and overload our tree. So we don't want to kill our tree either. Yeah, so that's pretty much natural burial in a nutshell.
What made you interested in natural burials? How did you come to it, and how did that evolve for you?
Environmental, because we have a farm just outside of Rotorua, 54 hectare farm, and we spent a lot of time and energy to not do anything to compromise our whenua, because we know that we are the hunga te that we are just looking after it for our mokopuna, and our future generations. So we didn't want to have any practices that would compromise our whenua. One of our whānau said there was a need for an urupā. Can we look at having an urupā on our farm? Yes, that was a very good idea. But when we it compromised, so to have just a traditional cemetery with a white picket fence and embalming and monuments, it really contradicted our vision for ourselves to use our whenua, but to enhance our whenua. So I was introduced to the idea of natural burial at a permaculture conference 20 years ago, and it just struck a chord and it resonated. And so I picked up the project to look at natural burial for our whenua. We had only one tree planted on our that was growing on our farm at that time, and so we, as a whānau, we replanted. We made a plan with Waikato Environmental to revegetate our waterway, and so that started in 2009. Our baby's whenua, our mokopuna, their whenua, their placenta was starting to be buried and a tree growing. And for some reason, they just kept it on the left-hand side of the plantings. And when we talked about natural burial, it just evolved naturally that we would plant ourselves on the other side of our growing forest. So it has been a personal and a selfish thing for me. That's what I want. That is where I want to lie. This is so these the conditions of natural burial. I had to teach my family, my whānau. So I had to find out a lot more. So it just evolved naturally that I teach my whānau. I put it out to my hapu and to my iwi. And being involved with Te Atawhai Aroha, just the people within our rōpū, our trustees, our members, just the support and the knowledge and the networking that we have has just been so valuable. And I think for Rotorua, we're really, really lucky that we have pioneers, and we've got a lot of whānau now who are willing to be courageous and brave, and they are pioneering an old way. It's not a new way. It's that we're reclaiming the honour and privilege to care for our whānau when they die, that the caring does not stop when they die. We're caring for our whānau through their life, through their illness, perhaps, or through their dying, and we just continue that care throughout their dying and their death and burial, and then that they are part of our whenua, and to grow a tree, and that tree becomes a legacy. And one other thing in having natural burials on our farm is that our farm will never be alienated. That is the intention, that we become tangata o te whenua, tangata whenua. And they really know that and believe that. And our mokopuna, so talking to the mokopuna now about what that will mean. We haven't got anybody buried on our farm at the moment, but it's going to be a real learning for our children, our mokopuna tuarua. And I'm very, very comfortable with my mokopuna knowing where my tree is, but their children don't have to know. They can just say, our nan's up there somewhere. She's around that area. It's okay. I just know she's there. So very, very comfortable with that.
Because you were the first to do this in a legal sense through the
Yes.
Māori Land Court and so forth, there's obviously no blueprint on the process, but there's a lot of whenua Māori out there. What would you encourage others, and how?
Yes.
What's the process like, and is there a blueprint now that whānau can take for them to consider doing this on their own whenua? And talk to me about the legals or the process in that space. Yeah.
Okay. So I am promoting, I will come and talk to any whānau or whenua trust about what they could do for their particular situation, or it may be that they already have an urupa. They can change their practice. They can start growing a tree. They might want to create a new urupa, so they can set that before they start burying their whānau. It all comes back to kōrero though. You have to have that communication, start the conversations. But if natural burial is an intended outcome, then to gather the information about it and be ready to answer those questions that you can. It was quite an easy process for us because we only have a small number of shareholders. So at every general meeting, I would bring it up and I'd say, well, this is what has been done to date. And what is your whakaaro? And do you support this? So I would always make sure that it was minuted, that the support was there. And just providing them information, answers to any questions they had. And then I did call a special meeting to the whānau to say we are going to, it's on the table to establish a natural burial area, and we need to elect trustees for a reservation. So, sorry, it was to create a reservation, and we needed to elect trustees for the reservation. So I had a map of the area, 5 hectares out of 54 hectares. I had to say how parking was going to be managed. We had to make sure that there was a management plan, that there was fencing. So there were a few details that I knew that the whānau would want to know, and I knew would have to go to the Māori Land Court. So the special meeting was called, and I knew I had the support from the previous meetings. We elected 3 trustees, myself, a cousin and a niece. And we just put the application into the Land Court to establish a reservation. We did get some feedback from the judge who didn't know what natural burial was. We had to provide more specific information about it. We went to court. He asked us a few more questions, which we were prepared for. And he congratulated us on setting a precedent for the future and wished us well. So we were very happy with that. And so establishing the reservation, the next step was to educate ourselves and our whānau. So we've got the whenua, okay, are we ready as a whānau? And yeah, that's been an ongoing process.
You've mentioned before during that process around establishing certain tikanga or certain sort of thing and stuff. Talk to us about that and what that looks like for you.
Okay. So we established the reservation, went to Māori Land Court, and then we, at the next general meeting, as the reservation trustees, we reported back to the whānau on what progress we'd made, if any, and then we put forward a discussion paper around tikanga that us as a whānau could set. This is our whenua. What tikanga do we set around our reservation, particularly our natural burial areas? So some of the main questions were: do we allow spouse to be buried in our urupā? So as trustees, we had the discussion, but we knew that we had to be guided by the whānau. And the whānau actually were quite okay with that. But they said the spouse's whānau needed to agree to their whanaunga being buried in our natural burial area, and they had to give permission. So that had to be done before they died. We don't want any arguments during the tangihana or after they're buried, because with natural burial, it doesn't take long for the body to break down anyway. So there will be no disinterments. Nobody can come later and dig them up and take them away. You just can't. So that was agreed to by the whānau, that yes, spouse can be buried there. We also talked about ash burials, and interesting that most of the whānau said, well, why are we doing this? This is a natural burial area, and ash and cremation is not environmentally really friendly. So they said no to ash burials. But then there's we will provide another area, but not in our reservation, because it was found that it was contradictory. We'll provide another area of another grove of trees that people can put ashes in if they decide to. Another tikanga was, so there's a lot of people have artificial hips and different parts, being replaced. And we were okay with that. The whānau were okay with that. We're not going to cut somebody's leg off because they've got a bionic part. So the whānau were okay with that, yes. So it was interesting. As the trustees, we thought that the whānau might say, might go to certain ways, but it wasn't until we brought it back to the whānau, had really good kōrero. And it wasn't just the shareholders, it was their children, their grandchildren. So we set our own tikanga, and it's not set in concrete. We will revisit it again. So we're now we are right now looking at planting another area of our reservation, and we're working with the nursery out at Horohoro, because we want to be a bit more diverse in our selection of trees, and we want to make sure that those trees will survive out there. We've got trees that are rongoa that we don't have, that we want to plant, that are rongoa rākau, and harakeke. We've got a lot of harakeke out there. So it's all in the circle of life, that we can use the harakeke for shrouds or for kopaki, that we can bury ourselves in those, put ourselves back into the ground, and then so goes the circle of life. Grow more harakeke, grow more trees. Yes.
Is there anything else you want to include as part of natural burials, or even Te Ata Whai Aroha, or anything else, Lynn, that you think you might like to capture to put on the website, or just share information?
I think we are in a time of change, and that people are wanting to be supported in a more natural practice of natural burial. They also, money's a big thing, and our that it can be more affordable. It's a big thing, and that money has been dictating some of our choices that we make, or that we're forced to make. So I think just by equipping ourselves with more information and knowledge of the resources that are available, we can still bury our whānau with mana and dignity, and keep the mana of the whānau, the mana of the whānau, by ensuring that they're not in debt. And the really big thing about natural burial, though, is the healing. That to really care for whānau from, throughout the stages of dying, death, and to bury them with love. That's really really important, and that's been some of the feedback from whānau, that it's been scary when they don't know, but in hindsight it was very healing for them. And to admit being scared when you're doing something you don't know, that you've never done before, is not a bad thing. But we do have to be brave and help each other. That's.
I guess that's the beauty of Te Ata Whai Aroha, is having a community such as that available to provide some resources, to provide some to support whānau considering or thinking about that. And I think that's one of the great things about this organisation existing in Rurutu, and that we are very, very fortunate to have it. And I can't wait for more people to know about its existence. So thank you for all the mahi that you all do.
Right, and we're always open to more whānau being part of our whānau, our whānui. And everybody has skills and talents, and a little bit of time or a lot of time. Just whatever anybody wants to koha. It's just a beautiful group of people who are appreciative of every koha that is given in their time, skills, talent. Aroha. Aroha me te, atawhai me te aroha. Ai. Kia ora. Kia ora.